Welcome to Expat Hoops, where we talk to basketball players who have played professionally overseas. Jamal Shuler joins us today, whose career has taken him all around Europe and Israel after he finished up his time at Virginia Commonwealth.
Before we talk to Jamal, I want to remind you to be interactive with us at Expat Hoops. We're active on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also show your support for content like this by hitting the like button, subscribing to our channel, or commenting below the video on our YouTube page. We also have a Patreon page, which you can find the button for that up in the corner of the YouTube page. Now, if you'll join Tony and I in welcoming Jamal to Expat Hoops, welcome to the show, Jamal.
Man, appreciate you guys for having me on.
Well, we're really happy to have you, despite what we're supposed to do as Mason grads, which we joked off the pod a little bit about that. But we will ask you about your VCU days just for a little bit. We do largely talk about overseas, but do like to hit college a little bit. What were your fondest memories from your VCU days?
Man, all those rivalry games, with Mason. Of course, Mason and ODU, man, it doesn't, get any better than that. I would say that the Spiders, but they don't really count, in my opinion. So, but those one game I remember against Mason, it was going to be a TV game, and the fans were going crazy on us. They were posting pictures of us at parties, and they had one of me holding a Grey Goose bottle and everything. So it was like, I went to the free throw line. They were screaming out alcoholic. I was like, come on, man, this is my mom is watching this, man. But it was always fun, man. I love that atmosphere, and I wouldn't change that experience for the world.
So this is your obviously highly successful college career at VCU. This is always kind of the difficult question for us to ask, because I'm sure for a long period of time that you wanted to be a professional and continue to play professionally. So I guess my question is, at what point in your career did you really actually start saying, okay, how do I become a professional, as in, whether it's going to the NBA or going internationally, and what were the steps that you took at that time?
Man, I would say the summer of my senior year, and honestly, I owe everything, really to Eric Maynard, because he was getting so much attention from, Steve Nash camps, the LeBron camps, and stuff like that. And he really taught me a work ethic of, let's get in the gym. Okay, we got practice here, but let's get in the morning. Let's do extra. So, just seeing him work towards his goal of, getting to the NBA, and how hard he worked for it, I was just like, okay, maybe, I'm not on the NBA radar, but, if I ride his coattail and, steal something from him, I can make a trajectory overseas, and, it ended up working out for me.
So we've heard commonly on this show sometimes before, either people are approached by agents or their coaching staff might know an agent or two or something and say, hey, look, if you're going to be playing, this is maybe who you should talk to, and, see where it goes. So between Eric, coaching staff, anybody like that, was there anybody particularly helpful in terms of linking you up with your agent, or were you able to just kind of did that on your own?
Man, I didn't hear anything, and I kind of took a hit in CAA play, for like 2 or 3 weeks. Like, my play declined because I was like, okay, well, Eric's on the NBA radar, Larry Sanders on the NBA radar. I'm like, I don't know where I'm gonna be. So, my stats, went down. I played a bunch of bad games, and then I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna leave it all on the line, and then whatever happens, happens. And I end up signing with the agent, during the Portsmouth Invitational, which I mean, I didn't get invited to, but I went out there, saw the guys playing, and signed with my agent. So, like I said, it was a blessing. It ended up working out for me.
Before we actually get into going overseas, there is one aspect of your life that was kind of interesting. One of the people that helped set up this interview, shout out to Mike Litos, really great blog that he has. He ran a story on you last year where, discussed a lot in your life, including a period of time where I think it was after your 7th grade year, you went to Arizona. And I'd encourage anybody listening to this to go read that. We'll probably link it in the YouTube section and everything. But specifically asking you about that period of time. You'd grown up in North Carolina to that point, did return to North Carolina, but at that point, no frame of reference with Arizona. Do you think that that really helped prepare you for overseas down the line?
Man, that set up all the preparation for college, for overseas, and just in life in general. It helped me see something, a different part of the world, which younger kids really, you grow up in one area and you pretty much move out when you go to college. So when my dad brung his orders to the family, and it was either Bakersfield, California, or Yuma, Arizona, and we chose Yuma as a family, and it was just us out there. So it set me up for preparing for the unknown. You know what I mean, for my career and in the life. So it definitely helped me out, because in North Carolina, I was headed down that path, getting in trouble, and not really putting grades and basketball in the forefront. So it really helped me just focus on school and basketball, and then my career took off.
Well, speaking of your career, I think, Tony, that's probably the logical point for you to jump in. I've hogged a lot of the time, so.
You began your career overseas in Germany. It would be the only time you stopped there. You've gone back and forth between several countries for much of your career. But Germany was your first stop. Your contract there was a year, but you ended up playing multiple seasons anyway when you ended up going there. So talk to us about your experience in Germany, how you ended up getting started there, and how you ended up extending your time, which also the experience that we've had on this show is that most people play year to year. 2-year contracts are relatively rare. So being able to extend your time in a country is something noteworthy.
So like you said, being new to everything, I actually signed my deal at Eric Maynard's draft party. You know what I mean? So it was kind of crazy, because what people don't know is that teams will sign you to a 2-year deal, but it'll be the team's option. So my first contract was a 1+1, but that second year was the team option. So, okay, if your first year you don't play bad, okay, we're not going to pick the option up. But if you play good, they'll come to you in, February, March, like, hey, we want to pick your option up. But how my situation was, I played good my rookie year, and a lot of teams in Germany, higher teams wanted me. And my deadline to pick up that option was the last date in June. So, teams usually they do their recruiting beginning of June, July to put their team together. And my team waited till midnight Eastern time to pick my option up. So that's how I ended up playing 2 years in Germany.
Waiting to the very last second.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Exactly. And I had a lot of teams, high level teams that were, hey, what you doing for next year, man? We really want you at this position. I'm like, I can't commit to anything because I'm waiting on my team now. So,
and it ended up working out for you.
It ended up working out.
Your dad, he was in the military, stationed in Germany. He gave you some advice on how to handle the country, correct?
Correct. He was there. And what helped me out is I had my military ID out of college, so I was maybe 45 minutes from a base, so I was eating American food my first 2 years. I was kind of spoiled and lucky, but just talking to him, he made it easier for me to make the leap by myself, because it's like, hey man, I had to do it by myself in the military. Your mom and your brother and sister were in the States, so he definitely helped me just make that transition smoother.
So actually, before we move on and before we get out of Germany, actually, during your first 2 years, in terms of seeing the country and adapting and making, what were some of the things that you would like to do in your first couple seasons in Germany?
I had another Mason grad, George Evans. He was my vet on the team. So whatever he was doing, I was doing. So whether that was, playing Monopoly at his house, watching NFL because he had the skybox at the time, going to the club, whatever Big George was doing, wherever he was at, I was there. So just trying to pass the time if it wasn't a 2-a-day practice. So
Was he playing there at the time? He said he was a teammate.
he was my teammate. He was my teammate, man. He had Big George. He played another. So I played 2 years in Germany. He played another 3 years after that, before he retired. So
Yeah, I think
he was going strong.
Didn't he only really play in 2 countries? When I say only play in 2 countries,
Yeah,
I mean
Belgium,
multiple
and Germany.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, Belgium and Germany. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I thought that was the case, and actually, that's one of the funny things is when we started the podcast, and one of the common refrains from some of the Mason fans is, "Hey, see if you can get George Evans." And like, I don't think he has much of a social media profile or anything like that. So
he is low key. I haven't heard from Big George in years, man. And that's how low key he is, man.
Thank you. This is going to be we're going to cut this out and put this on our boards.
and whoever finds him, tell him his young guy's looking for him. So yeah, that'll help me out.
This is gold for us right now.
It's quite remarkable too that we found someone that crossed paths with him, because I mean he was an older guy when he was in college. Like he wasn't, he was 26, 27.
Yeah, I remember being a young guy, just watching ESPN and seeing his highlights on ESPN, and that's the first thing I told him. When I arrived in Germany and we were having lunch together, I'm like, man, I remember you. I've been watching you since I was a kid. You know what I mean? So it's crazy how life works, man.
Yeah,
that's remarkable. But enough about George Evans. Let's talk more about you. You won an all-star slam dunk contest while you're in Germany as well. That's pretty unique for guests on the show. I don't think we've had a guy who's won a dunk contest before. Tell us about that experience. That must have been quite something. You must have gotten a few fans after that.
Man, I think it was just all fan and crowd interaction, man. And I had a game plan and I stuck to it. With everybody else who I was competing against could jump higher than me, was way more athletic. They were trying crazier stuff, what was just missing. And how that all-star setup works is we had a game in Frankfurt the day before, and on the road back, George and my guy Chris Copeland was like, all right, shoot, this is what we're gonna do. You got 4 dunks, we're gonna go down the line, and we just executed it perfectly. I didn't miss a dunk. Like I said, I wasn't the highest jumper or anything like that, but I executed. I got the crowd involved, and the rest was history.
And actually, this is kind of interesting. We've heard from some different people, mostly in Italy and some of the other countries too. But in your first 2 years in Germany, you played really well your first year. You got the option to pick up the second one. You were hearing from lots of other teams. What was it like in the country? Were you recognized quite a bit, by the end of your second year in Germany? Or what was it like being an athlete in Germany at that point in time that had been playing really, really well?
Right. So how Europe is set up and overseas basketball is, so in America you have your NBA teams, and you could be a Lakers fan in Virginia, or vice versa, a Knicks fan in California. So in your city, wherever you're playing at, you're an NBA star. So you're automatically like, okay, if you have a good game, like you're the best player I've ever seen. You know what I mean? In their eyes. And so you can start locally in your city, but once you get the attention around the whole country with the the top level teams, that's when you start seeing guys like, okay, I really I get this. I'm getting the hang of it. I'm knowing the league and stuff like that. So you always getting attention in the grocery store, the movies, wherever you're at. So like you say, if you're on that team in that city, you're like the biggest attraction if you're not sharing a city with a soccer team. So
the big if there.
The big exactly, because soccer trumps everything overseas. I don't care what anybody says. So
yeah,
if you're the lone basketball team there, you're it.
So from Germany, you ended up in France, where you spent a lot of time in your career.
Mhm,
After Germany, you spent 3 years in France, in France,
mhm,
including in 2011, where you won the French Super Cup.
mhm.
Um, how do you feel like you grew as a player in your first stint in France after going into Germany?
Oh man, what people actually don't know, man, I was on the verge of getting cut my first year in France, and you know, that's what showed me how cutthroat this business could be because you know we started with, and another CA guy, my one of my best friends, Frank Ellegar from Drexel, we were on the same team, and he ended up going down with a heart issue, and so he had to miss the first 3 months of the season. So that set us back because he was our star player. You know what I mean? So we started off the season like terrible. Right? To be honest, we started terrible, and then when we got him back, we were the hottest team in the second half. But that slow start, they were and a lot of overseas guys know you get off to a slow start, the team is like, okay, I need a two guard to replace Jamal. I need a point guard to replace the guy I have to give something new. And actually, my point guard kind of saved me because I just had a baby, and he was like, you know what, I'm going to go to this other team. They're going to keep you. Everything's going to be great. And then after that, man, I like my game went to a different level. Like I didn't average nothing less than 20 points. The team loved me so much they named me captain. I was like, man, y'all just wanted to cut me 2 weeks ago. Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? So it just showed me how how cutthroat the business could be. But that first year, it's helped me springboard and pretty much give me some longevity in France, some respect. So I know the good and the bad, it helped me out.
You spent until 2013 there. You returned in 2014 to win the
Mhm,
2015 Euro Challenge, and you
mhm,
were named a Final Four MVP. So you've had a lot of success in France.
mhm,
For Nanterre, I believe that's
mm.
pronounced.
Yeah, yep.
So you were there in 2014 and 2015. You had your accolades there. You were there again in 2017, 2018.
Mhm,
2017 French Super title with that team. So you have a
mhm.
lot of hardware from France.
Yes, sir.
It's quite a place. It's a place where you've seen a great deal of success. And of course, in the meantime, in 2015, you spent 2 years for Monaco, which is in the French league, though it's not,
Mhm.
France as it
Right,
were. But
right,
you're
right,
essentially playing the same teams that you did before, so you
right.
might as well have stuck around with it. It's not that far away. Um,
Exactly, exactly.
French Leaders Cup, all French league first team, 2 years in a row for French League Leaders Cup, and then the Champions League Final Four in 2017.
Mhm.
Maybe your most successful stint with Monaco there. So this is
Yeah,
this
for
is all
sure.
of the accolades that you developed together in the French league, as it
Mhm,
was.
mhm.
Spent a lot of time there. When you've been in the French league for that long, and you know your competition that well, is that something that carries with you? Were you well known throughout the French league?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I just you know, the thing that me and my wife and my family love about France is that uh, the fans became like our family, and when I was on the road, they looked out for my wife and my children. Um, when my wife would travel to games, they would make sure she was okay, even in a hostile environment. So just getting that love and respect from the fans, and some fans became family. I still talk to them today, very close. So, um, and my attitude is, I'm a very welcoming person. Like I like to compete, but I like to compete with a smile on my face, and and I think that carried over. That gave me some respect, and my game backed it up. So it kind of worked for me. France, of course, but Monaco especially is always going to be my second home. My youngest daughter was born there, so it's just a lot of memories on and off the court. And like I said, when you can, not only have the respect in your city, but the whole country, from the likes of Tony Parker, Nicholas Batum, Ronnie Turioff, like all these guys that I could say, like, I know them and got some respect from them is a good feeling.
I was going to say, actually, I think as we're recording this, there was a social media post that you put out not too long ago, And in the comments, I'm pretty sure I saw some people that said, "Come back to Monaco, come back to Monaco." So
Yeah. It's like that. Like when you, like I said, I don't treat the fans for the city that I play for. I don't just treat them as fans. Like, okay, clap and thank you for coming out, and I don't want to talk to you. Like, no, I really like get to know as many people as I can, and like I said, fans become family, and that's holds true to this day. And I think people really genuinely respect and they know that my passion for the game and my passion just to be a good person, they relate to that. So
one of the things that really kind of jumped out at me when you were talking, and first of all, it was great to hear that the fans would make sure that your wife and your family was good and everything like that,
mhm,
especially where you're saying a hostile environment. We've heard
mhm,
about hostile environments from overseas. Most of the time it's
man.
been like Cyprus, Greece, stuff like
Yep,
that.
yep.
So take us through whether it's from France or when you were traveling some of the other European countries. What were some of the experiences that were like, all right, this is getting a little wild?
Man, Greece and Israel, man, is like at the top of that list. And like I said, I have a you know, fans become family, and even teammates become family. And one of my young guys in Israel, he had got drafted by Boston this past year. We became tight with his family, and we were at a away game in Israel, and I mean the crowd was like it was so hostile. My wife was up there with his family, and his dad actually like protected, like was pushing people away from them. So it gets crazy over there, man. Like from spitting to hot coins to beer bottles. Like guys just don't. Is you know I think Norris Cole a few years ago he got a chair thrown at him while they were warming up for a championship game. So it's like you have to be on your toes and be alert at all times, for certain games.
That's actually something that when you go overseas and before you have one of those experiences, I'm sure there's probably some examples of people that don't get told that or maybe that they don't know
Hmm.
how to react. But what was your experience like with anybody telling you, okay, you're going to see something different, this is how you should handle yourself, or you should be on the lookout for, if things start getting to this point, you need to start looking for exits or something
Yeah,
like that?
I was actually maybe it was my first year in Ukraine, so I was in Germany and France. They're kind of like they get loud and they get enthusiastic about the team, but it's not to a point where it gets dangerous. So my first year in Ukraine, I have like a celebration every year, different celebration, like when I make a three or something like that. And my teammate, we were playing a Euro Cup game in Serbia, and my teammate Romeo Travis, he said, "Yeah, man, when you make your shot today, don't do your celebration." I'm like, "That's my thing. Like, why can't I?" He's like, "No, that's it's kind of close. It's kind of close to a disrespectful sign over here." So that was just like I was making threes, and I was just going right back on defense. I wasn't doing it. So that was my awakening, my rude awakening. Like, okay, yeah, it could get serious out here on something that I don't even know anything about in that country. So yeah, that opened up my eyes for sure.
Off the pod, we had talked a little bit about you're going to Ukraine. You just brought up Ukraine. It was a great segue. So this is now the great time I get to talk about it. You're the first person on the pod that's actually gotten to Ukraine. We talked in our first guest with Tony Skin, who by that point in time, as we were talking about, had become injured in the Olympics and didn't want. He signed with a team, but he didn't wind up going. He retired and became a coach.
Mhm.
Take us through a little bit of that story. Recount that for our listeners, and you're talking a little about your experience in playing in Ukraine, what the day-to-day of that was like in the Ukraine.
Yeah, so like people don't understand, like they think the rivalry in college is like players are going at it, blood, sweat, and tears, and we don't talk, or everybody's beefing. But I respected everybody that I played with in the league, and from Tony to Will to Follerin and Matt Janice, like I said, Frank, we're Daryl Monroe, we're all cool. And that year, Budavelnik is the team that signed Tony, and they were interested in me because I was coming off a good year in France. And I'm going back and forth in negotiations. You and Tony in the back court, and I'm like, Tony's a killer. Like that's perfect for me. You know what I mean? And he just got Nigeria in the Olympics. So I'm following that game, and he had a great move on James Harden. I think made him do the split. So I'm all excited. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna happen. And he had the major injury, and they signed Malcolm Delaney to replace him. And so I'm about to sign the deal, and I tell my father, I'm gonna go to Ukraine. And with his military background, he was like, "Man, I was planning on coming to see you play this year, but if you go to Ukraine, I'm not gonna risk it. They scan and see I'm, military, and they have a problem with me. So that kind of like scared me away from the deal, and I resigned in France that year, and I ended up getting hurt. So me and Tony was hurt the same year, but the following year I signed in Kimmich, and it was me, Romeo Travis, Matt Gadens, who's now coaching at Drake, and they had a great season this year in NCAA, and Paul Delaney, who went to UAB, who I played in college as well. So we had a great team, man, and we ended up losing in the finals. But that year was, you think of Ukraine, and I just thought of like baby Russia, you know what I mean? Like bombshell buildings and, vodka and cigarettes, and you know what I mean? I'm just thinking about movies. And then, I get there, and my city was very small. I mean, you can get in your car and drive in a circle and you'll be back in your apartment. That's how small it was. And but I enjoyed my time. My wife loved it out there. Saved a lot of money on gas because I could walk to the gym. We were Euro Cup, and we exceeded expectations on that. Like I said, we made it to the finals. Just the only bad part is that's when they started the conflict with Russia. So we were on the front line of a war, man, and it was scary. We were um, 30 minutes from Odessa, which is a beautiful city. So on a day off, me and the family, me and Romeo and his family, we will go to, Odessa, eat, go to the movies, whatever. And I remember one day we were coming back, and it was just 16 fleet of tanks. And I'm like, oh man, it's about to start. The war is about to start. And as we turn to our city, they keep going. And I tell my wife, I'm like, you know what? If we're gonna finish the season, you and my daughter, y'all have to go home. And she was like, I'm not leaving you. I'm not doing. I'm like, look, babe, it's your mom is calling every day. My mom is calling because they're seeing on CNN and Mazel tov cocktails being thrown. And I'm like, look, we had to play a game of turkey, and I'm like, I wouldn't, I couldn't live with myself if I'm in Turkey. They start the war, shut the country down, and y'all are stuck here. You know what I mean? So, that was one of the hardest times that, just off the court and dealing with everything. Um, but I love my experience in Ukraine. Other than that, because that was scary, man.
Yeah. On the court, I think our stats say that you played 51 games for them, averaged something like 12.7 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal a game. And, like you said, in the Euro Cup, so you're doing well, not only in the Euro Cup, but also doing well in the, that's the VTB league, right?
So it was we weren't VTB that year. We were just Ukraine and Euro Cup. It was a couple teams in the league that were VTB, but it was a team Donetsk that was in the VTB, and we played them in the semifinals. And what's crazy about this, we how the playoff was set up. It was 2-2-1, so it was a five game series. Won the first 2 games, and as we were getting on a flight to Donetsk, the president said, okay, guys, I want to talk to you. And we're like, okay, what's going on? We get a prep talk from the president. Maybe he's going to throw a bonus if we win or whatever. And he just had this like ghostly look in his eyes. He was like, okay, if we don't win this game, the season is going to be over. And I'm like, man, we're up 2-0. Like, the season's not going to be over. We're going to play game 4. And he was like, no, I think this city is going to go up in flames in the next 2 days. And we were like, what? He was like, yeah, it's going to get bad. So that just sparked in my head, the conversation I had with my wife. So we're on the bus to the game, and you see thousands of people just, they're going to the city center, and it looked like it's about to be a clash. And man, I think I had like 32 points that game. We ended up winning. Went to the airport, flew back, and 2 days later, man, the city was in shambles. They burned everything down. The airport that we flew into, it was gone. So, that was Ukraine was one of the best and craziest times of my career.
Oof. But anything else in terms of your experience? We actually spoke to somebody else, Shane Lawal, who was actually playing in Libya early on in his career when the civil war broke out there. What else? I mean, what sort of? I think probably from my standpoint at this point, we've heard a crazy story. I would say that Tony and I, the last time we heard something like that, we were kind of shell shocked of like, wow, and it's still surprising to hear. But say if there is somebody that if you're talking to them and they're in a place of the world that might be a little unstable, going down a path like that, what sort of advice would you give them generally? Obviously, it's not everything can't translate over, but that's a unique experience that unfortunately somebody might also have to run across. And having been through it once before, what would be your recommendation to them of like things to watch out for and things to do?
My best advice is just, I would say pack an emergency bag, because that's what I did, and find the closest border for that you can cross. You know what I mean? Because 9 times out of 10, whatever's going on in that country, it's not all around, the neighboring countries. You know what I mean? So, excuse me, either one of those are going to be a safe haven. And I think for us, it was Moldova. So I think Moldova was like a 6 or 8 hour drive, and I had a bag in the car ready. You know what I mean? So if it ever gets to that point, I would just say have an emergency bag, and just know where's the closest and safest border to just get across. And because at the end of the day, we love playing this game, but it's about your life and your safety. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So, we kind of went a little out of order with Ukraine. You spent a lot of time either in France or, like we said, with Monaco, still essentially the French league. Your next experience in terms of another country doesn't happen until 2018, 2019 season, where you're playing in Israel. Highly successful there again, 36 Israeli league games, averaged 10 points a game, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal per game. Helped the team reach the Israeli League playoffs. Take us through your season in Tel Aviv.
Man, that was kind of it had the makings of being something very special, man. And what I mean by that is, like I said, I met one of somebody that I'm very close to now. 2 people actually, and Dallas Moore, a great scorer out of Florida, and Yam Madar, and those 2 are we're like this to this day. But we had a great team on paper, man, and it just for some reason management and our coach were butting heads all year. You know what I mean? And that's a bad formula. You know what I mean? Because if management wants to sign 2 players that play a certain way, and the coach wants to sign 3 players that play a way that he wants to coach, you can feel the tension every time that the organization and the coach and is it was just bad. You know what I mean? So and we made something out of nothing, because like I said, the coach, it was some games he was like, he may have got in an argument with the president. He was like, I don't care about this game. I'm gonna play these young guys in a stretch where the other team is playing veterans, and then I'm gonna play my veterans when we're down 20. So it was just like a constant circle of, man, y'all have to figure this out so we can start winning games. You know what I'm saying? So but we started out the season, man, like 2-9, like bottom of the league. made a few cuts, and like you said, we ended up saving the season and making the playoffs. I think we were like 5 games under 500. You know what I mean? But we made the playoffs, and just try to save face and make something out of nothing. But from the people that I met and the relationships I gained, I would say it was successful basketball wise. I think that was kind of like the first time I was like, man, maybe it's about time for me to stop playing. You know what I'm saying? Just dealing with not a bad organization, just like bad people in the organization. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that, as far as Israel goes, I was actually going to kind of take you this way anyway, away from basketball, so to speak, and actually living there. I have a lot of people that rave about their time in Israel, not only between the well, sometimes pay is kind of an issue with organizations, but in terms of,
right.
countries usually you expect to be paid on time, be paid well. Israel is usually one of those, some exceptions maybe, but in terms of living, you talked about some of the friendships that you made. If you could kind of expand upon that, because a couple episodes ago we had Cam Long on where he was talking about
Cam
like, I
Long,
really,
my guy. Yep.
yep,
Yep.
he's like, I really felt embraced there. I mean,
He
we
was a
talked a little
man
bit.
out there, man. And his year when I was out there, he said it was gonna be his last year, and I'm like, are you sure? Because the way you playing, like you're gonna be MVP of this league, like in for the next 2-3 years. He was like, yeah, I'm done, Shu. Like it's over for me. So he was, you know, like I said, just having a relationship with him. He was on the same team as Daryl. You know what I'm saying? It's like the world is small, man. That's why I try to tell these college guys, like, okay, it's cool to live in the rivalry and be intense and stuff, but you don't like this can be your brother in the next 4 or 5 years. You know what I'm saying? Like you never know. So yeah, but Israel is beautiful, man. Like my family loved it. We were right by the beach. The weather is great. The people were great. You know what I mean? And it just so happened I was the unlucky one. I was on the team that were paying late. You know what I'm saying? So if I could have had the full experience of the organization being on time and being paid on time, I think that would have been like a 10 out of 10. But you know, I was in a spot where our facilities were great. Everything was great. Our fans were rowdy. It was just, like I said, when the coach and the organization just butt heads, it's you can't be successful. And like I said, we made something out of nothing just on like, come on, man, on paper, we're better than this. And so it was like kind of a team thing to win enough games to make the playoffs. But
Now
I
here's the
enjoyed it,
interest.
like I said.
Here's the $1 million question. Actually, I didn't realize the pun I was making there. But in terms of the pay, do you think that was something that maybe the coach was that kind of like behind a little bit of the background? Was it kind of like the organization and the coach wasn't getting along, and it also manifested to the players with the pay late and everything?
Oh, for sure. So once you see the coach and the management butted heads, and then I think we won our first game by like 30. So boom, you get your first check, everybody's happy, and the coach was like, well, I want this player, and the management want this player. Then it spews into the media, and then next thing you know, every other team around the league knows what's going on. Like Daryl was messaging me like, man, you good, bro? I hear everything. I hear this, I hear that. And it's just like payments get a month late, a month and a half late, and it's just a cycle. And now you just lose passion, for like, okay, I'm just gonna show up for practice and I'm going home. If practice is at 4 o'clock, I'm gonna show up at 3:55 and I'm gonna be the first one to hit the showers. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm not getting paid. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's just a lot of stuff that you know mentally, and that's what I want. That's my message that I tell younger guys. Like mentally, if you're not tough mentally, it'll break you, man. It'll break you because you'd be like, man, I don't even want to see basketball. I don't care about basketball. But then it's just like, and your core, you're like, I actually love the game, so I'm gonna go out here and give it 100%. You know what I'm saying? So it wears on you when you're at a dysfunctional organization, and not even the organization, because the organization can be good. It's just if the coach and the management are button heads, is a disaster.
Yeah, and I mean, depending on where your family is, you're either alone or it's only you and your family, or maybe
Exactly.
some people that you know along the way as well. So
Right.
as far
Right.
as your experience in Israel, was that the first time that you'd ever been paid late or had a pay issue?
Yep. Yep. I
Mm,
was good. I was telling everybody, I'm like, man, I was kind of lucky, man. Being in Greece, I mean, being in Germany and France, you know, those organizations, they have to show their budget before they actually make a team, and you have to have a backup plan to give to the government. And if that falls through, the government pays a salary. So it was, you have so many safe falls, and it kind of works against the players because it's like, okay, they're gonna sometimes lowball you because, hey, okay, you want to go to Israel for 20, 40, 50,000 more where you're not going to get your money, or you want to take less and get your money on time. You know what I'm saying? So teams actually use that to their advantage. So,
kind of almost
but
in the way
yeah,
of like the NFL, like where they do like what the bottom line with those contracts are, what is my guaranteed money versus,
hmm
you see these eye-popping figures, but it's like, well, you can be cut at any time, and how much of that's
exactly,
guaranteed?
exactly. It's the same thing, exactly. So it's like, going to Israel was just like, okay, I can see being a month late, and okay, we started bad, but like, wow, we out here working hard and we're losing games at the buzzer and this and that. Like, okay, we're not just giving up, you know what I'm saying? And then it's just like, a month turns to 2 months, and then it's just a repeated cycle. And now you're on the phone with your agents, you're on the phone with FIBA lawyers, and you have to threaten the team to sue to get what you're owed in your contract. Is just, it becomes not about basketball then, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And then guys that, management owes you money, and then they show up and with a smile on their face, or they show up to your practice or want to shake your hand or want to talk to you. I'm like, man, don't you owe me 2 months worth of my like? So it's, we have to be professionals, you know what I mean? Because it's a dirty game out there. And if you have an attitude, or you know uh cuss somebody out because you're frustrated, now we're the bad guys, you know what I'm saying? So, like I said, it's more mental strength, mental toughness. You really learn a lot about yourself when you're dealing with, organizations like that.
Absolutely. So to take you from Israel, their last stops plural were in Greece, two different
hmm
clubs. If
hmm
you want to take us through those last two stops to the current day.
Yeah. So, like I said, with in Israel basketball wise, I felt like it was a down year. I was questioning myself. Even though I averaged double digit points, I just was like, I wasn't a good fit for that coach. Like, I'm not an ISO player, break you down, and I come off pin downs, and I like movement, and that coach, it was just, he wanted to play LA Fitness style, and that's just not my game. I told him that. So going to Greece, speaking to this coach, and he's like, I'm going to give you the green light. I know what type of player you are, and I know last season it just wasn't a fit, and I'm going to do whatever I can to help you out. And it was that first year with the Rock List was just a breath of fresh air for me. Like it, I finally felt like myself again, and was playing great basketball. This was their first year back in the first division after 8 years, so the fans embraced me and my family, man, like no other. You know what I mean? And that's one of my favorite teams that I played for. And it just so happened the pandemic just, ended all that momentum. It was going to be their first time in the playoffs. Like I said, every time they came up to first division, they went back down. They got relegated. So this was their first year. Like we were 2 games under 500, but we were like sixth in the league, fighting for the fifth or fourth spot with 6 or 7 games left. So we were guaranteed to make the playoffs. So it was like the city was rowdy, the fans were rowdy. We were playing good as a team. I finally was, showing people that last year was, it wasn't, you know, I wasn't getting washed up, as they say, you know what I mean? And then COVID just killed all that momentum, you know what I mean? And fast forward to this past season, you know, uh, Aris and Iraklis are kind of like rivals, lesser rivals. There's three teams in Thessaloniki. Iraklis, which I played for my first year in Greece, Pout, which everybody hates if you're not on Pout, and Aris, which is the team that I went to this past season. And so talking to that coach, he was like, yeah, man, we want to capitalize off the season you had. We want you in the backcourt with Mario Chalmers. Like I said, the team on paper was excellent. You know what I mean? And I had interest from my old coach. He was at a different team in Greece on the island, and which in hindsight, I should have went there because I was familiar with that coach. I played great under him. But I was like, my wife and my family, we love the city. My wife would drive around there. She knew her way around. So just being comfortable outweighed going with my old coach, which would have let me play my game. You know what I mean? And when I tell you, man, this past year was a disaster because I walked into the same situation in Israel. Like management and the coach was just, butting heads. Payments were late. Uh, Playing time, it wasn't how it was. This coach was actually the first coach who told me he doesn't feel comfortable playing his best players. And I was like, I was like, I said, Coach, it had me shocked. It had me shocked because in preseason, we play a lot of friendly games, to get in condition and game shape, and you get your chemistry with your teammates. So me and Mario Chalmers were supposed to be in the backcourt, point guard, shooting guard. Okay, we need to, a few games to, learn how to play with one another. And we would play we would start the game, play 5 minutes together, and then he would play the second quarter. I would play the third quarter. He would play the fourth quarter. And I'm like, how are we going to go into the season not knowing, I don't know when he's going to attack. He doesn't know when I want the ball. You know what I'm saying? So I talked to the coach and I'm like, Coach, we're preparing all wrong because we're playing against the team's best five in the fourth quarter. Whether we win or lose, they're getting experience. He said, yeah, but I don't want to play my best players together because it's going to take away from you guys' game. I'm like, Coach, that's up to us to figure out. You know what I'm saying? So that was the first coach that told me he doesn't want to play his best players on the floor together. And I should have known then. I was telling my agent, I'm like, yeah, this is not the best place for me. And this is before the season started. You know what I'm saying? And and just dealing with injuries after it was just a disaster. So I during the FIBA window, that's when guys go to play for their national teams. I just parted ways with the team, man, and I've been home since. So
oh, go ahead.
And in hindsight, it kind of hurt me because now that COVID is around and you have to deal with testing, and it's just a different field in recruiting now. So when I parted ways with the team, I should have flew back to Greece and parted ways, and because teams were asking me, oh, are you available? Are you still in Greece? And I'm like, no, I'm in America. And the process is I would have had to get a COVID test, wait 72. I think 72 hours is the max that you can fly with the COVID test that you just took. So they were getting guys that were already overseas, and I had like 4 or 5 job opportunities that was just like, oh man, you're in America, okay, give us 3 days to see. And that third day they would sign somebody who was in like Slovenia or Slovakia or something. So, but yeah, that was my last experience, man.
Oh wow! And so when exactly did you part ways, and how long? I know you said you've been back in America since, but when about was that in COVID
It was
era?
February. I got home February 8th on my dad's birthday, and after Super Bowl Sunday, I got home. And I've been home ever since. So, had a couple of deals in Poland, Lithuania, and Macedonia that just fell through because teams wanted me right away. Like if I was in Greece, I wouldn't even have to have a COVID test. I could have just flew to those countries, 2-hour flight, but they wanted players within 48 hours, and
Yeah, there's actually currently, as we sit down and record this, there was, I think it was yesterday, where you might have actually even retweeted, but I know some of our past guests had kind of interacted with it a little bit too, where somebody made the comment about like overseas teams are like, can you play today? Like, like signing and everything like
yep,
that. So
yep,
it's exactly
yep.
I mean, that's a joke, but it's also, there's an element of
It's
truth to
true.
it.
Yep, it's
Yep.
true. It's true. I mean, like we joke about it because we trying to keep it lighthearted, but it is like, you guys, teams are already put together. Guys have been practicing for weeks, and they assign a player like, hey, come right off the plane, physical. Can you play? I'm like, man, can I get through this jet lag and the time difference? And can I put my bags down? Can I, so it's a lot.
Yeah, your contract begins immediately.
Yeah, immediately from soon as that thing is faxed over or emailed over, as soon as that ticket is issued, they want you got to get off the plane with your sneakers tied, man.
Yeah. So still looking for deals. I know a little bit off the pod, you're considering what you're going to do. By now you're getting a little older. I mean, I say this as a 37. I am older than you, but I'm also not an
Right.
athlete and everything like that. So when I say older, I mean older in terms of athlete, and you're starting to look, what's next for you?
Well, for me, I still want to play because like I said, I'm a winner above all. I want winning to be next to my name. Just don't want to be a guy known for he just wanted to get his, or he just like, I'm all about team success. Everybody's involved and everybody's happy, and we're winning. And this past situation, that just wasn't, it wasn't a fit for me, and I don't want to leave. You know, I don't want that to be an asterisk on my resume. That when he retired and he averaged 5 points and they were losing and this and that, and there's a lot that went into that. But for me, I don't make excuses. Like, I could have been better, I could have done this and that, but now I'm looking into the Latin American market, the Asian market, and just going from there, just staying ready. So this is like the first preseason I've missed in my career, but you know I'm ready to help anybody out right now. I still can play at a high level, you know, and for what I do, my game isn't predicated on athleticism. It's about thinking the game, shooting. I'm a great passer, so
Which is great for overseas too, because a lot of those leagues are more tactical than they are necessarily reliant.
exactly,
Yep. So
exactly. So like I said, with COVID now, it gave the ball back into the team's hands, because usually how it works is like, if a player is coming off a great season, there's a bidding war, and teams are like, will overpay for a player, and then that player wouldn't live up to expectations, so the team would be upset. So now teams are just, they're throwing the low contract, and guys are like, I'm not going to wait around, so they're taking it. So it's actually in the team's hands. And with guys like me, okay, I'm up in age, but I've played in every league. I've competed against, ex NBA players. I've seen every situation, and so my resume, teams are like, okay, yeah, he's coming off a bad season, but he can bring this leadership and this to the team, but he's going to ask for this much money, so we're just going to sign this young guy, and if it doesn't work, okay, Jamal's still going to be at home. He can, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I'm sure
that's
the
how I'm looking at it.
teams probably also can build in a little bit, which, I mean, there might be some element of truth to some of it with some of the teams, but I would have to imagine that some of the teams are like, oh, finances are tough with COVID, and they could justify giving lower amounts of money. We'd love to be able to pay Jamal, but we can't afford them, sort of thing.
That was it goes hand in hand, and a lot of guys are, they don't know that. Like you said, that's a great point. A lot of guys don't know that, and are frustrated, like, oh man, y'all have more money than that. And it's like, nah, they, even before COVID, some of these teams didn't have a lot of money, you know what I'm saying? So even now, so yeah, it goes both ways, man.